We'll ask you to listen with both ears because we don't have a lot of people here. We're trying to get as many as we can. So welcome to the Essex branch of the Ontario Genealogical Society, and we are in our June meeting. Some of you may be aware that in the past we normally will live stream our meetings, but we are not able to do this. We've been having technical difficulties. So the meeting will be recorded and then ultimately uploaded to the website. So it won't be, you'll still be able to access it at that point. So just some information which I'm sure you're all familiar with, but we just want to make sure that everybody's aware of who we are and that we are not alone. We are part of a provincial network of branches. Here, particularly in the Essex branch, we do have these facilities available and resources available. In Essex County Research and General Family History, we have a resource collection. This is all up on the second floor of the library. Monthly meetings from September through June, and we have a newsletter and a website. So in addition to the provincial network, please go on and check out what is available at the local level. And there are the access addresses for the website and for email, and we're also on Facebook. So if you're into the social media, then that's a very active component of what we do have available. If you're thinking of joining, this is an opportunity time to do so because of the special offer that's available for new members. And you can we'll join right away, and rather than wait for the 2018 membership cycle. So if you are not a member of OGS, then you might consider that. It's certainly an advantage the way it's set up at this point. Let me just back up for a second. Okay. A special event, as you may or may not know, the provincial conference is going to be on in, is it over or done?
This coming weekend.
It's coming weekend, and it's in Ottawa. And the one nice thing that's going to happen is that there will be an opportunity to see one of the particular presentations through live streaming. And Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about how that's going to operate for people that might want to access it?
Yeah, I wish I brought the list of all the, there's 4 presentations, but we've got with the Family History Center, and they've given us a room, and we're going to live stream it through YouTube, and we're starting at 9 o'clock. That's the first presentation in Ottawa. So there's 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. We may, I don't know if anyone's interested, but we could stay for the annual general meeting as well after that. But anyway, we're going to try it. They gave us the opportunity. I think Thunder Bay and ourselves are the only ones going to be live streaming it, so it should be kind of.
And the location for those who may not be familiar.
The Latter-day Saints Church showed in Forest Glade, just off of Lausanne Parkway, and it's in the back. We're coming in through the rear entrance there, so parking in the back. Anyway, it's going to be exciting. I'll be there with big TV. A lot of fun. So,
thanks, David. Again, just a reminder that we will not have meetings in July or August, and of course, unfortunately, I think the time change has affected us. Normally, our meetings run from 7 to 9, but with the library going on summer hours and closing the branch at 8. We have to, as it shows there, have a 6 p.m. start for June and probably September as well. So, okay. So thank you for coming. And it says the Tom Vedic will be giving us a tour in September of the new resources in the resource center that are up on the second floor, the local history section and so on. So if you're just getting into family research and history in this area, you'll find that, I think, invaluable to see exactly what is available for you in looking up your own particular ancestors. Tonight, we're very pleased to have Joka Blach with us tonight, and we often will do this too because there are a lot of different ethnic groups in the Windsor area. We've had a variety of them do presentations for us, and so tonight, as indicated there, it will be on Serbian ancestry and how to go into research that, if in fact that's an area which you or your family may be involved with. So at this point, Joka, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for inviting me here this evening to talk to you. I'm going to do a little presentation here on actually how Serbs came to Windsor. I've called it A Journey to a New Home because for many Serbians, this became their home, and the Serbs of Windsor and Essex County. So the Serbian immigrants, the Serbs' arrival to Canada, we're going to start with that because they didn't automatically come to Windsor in Essex County. So you might ask yourselves why they chose Canada. And there were three essential conditions that had to be met for a lot of these Serbs that were displaced from their homeland. They needed to have personal freedom, they needed to have cultural tolerance, and religious tolerance as well. And Canada offered all three of these. The Serbs did not come to Canada all in one big foul swoop. They came in waves, so they came at different periods. The first wave was around 1850, and these Serbs actually didn't come from Serbia proper. They came from the United States. They had settled in the United States and then came across the border. Many of them did return back to the United States, but these were primarily from the Montenegrin coast. They settled in British Columbia along the Fraser River and in Vancouver, and they worked in the mines and in the forest industries. The second wave was around 1900. And this wave came directly to Canada from the region of Vojvodina. They migrated to other provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta. They worked in the coal mines, they built roads, and they worked on the railway. Just before the First World War, there was a larger influx of Serbs. They formed communities in Toronto, Hamilton, and Niagara Falls. However, these Serbs did not come from Serbia proper. They came from the regions of Lika, Kordun, and Banja, all part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the time. So yeah, I must understand that these Serbs did not have Serbian passports, they were not Serbian citizens, they were citizens of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And that's important to note here. World War I broke out in 1914, and on August 22nd, Canada enacted the War Measures Act. And I don't know if many of you know this, but this resulted in the internment of immigrant Canadians from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It included Serbian Canadians, along with thousands of Ukrainian Canadians and others. What was unique with the Serbs, though, was Serbs from Serbia proper were considered allies, but Serbs from the Austro-Hungarian Empire were considered to go to be interned. So the Serbs that came from Serbia proper were not interned, but Serbs that came from the Austro-Hungarian Empire were. There were 25 camps established from British Columbia to Nova Scotia, and the internment did not end at the end of the war. It ended in 1920. So they were kept for 2 years after the war, post-war. On August 22nd, 2014, the anniversary, the 100th anniversary of the War Measures Act, there were 100 plaques unveiled at the same time at 11 a.m. from coast to coast. And the Serbian Heritage Museum was honored to be one of the places chosen to receive a plaque. So we do have a plaque for that designates the internment, about the internment. So when do we find Serbs first coming to Windsor? We have a gentleman named Kosta Stefanovic. He appeared to be the first to make his home here. And in 1910, his brother came 2 years later. And how do we know this? Because their names appeared in the Windsor City Directory in 1914. Usually the men came first to the country. Their wives and children were left behind. They got settled and then they brought their families over. Most of the Serbs who settled in Windsor were first sent to work on the prairies or in the mines and forests of northern Ontario. This is a photograph of a group of Serbs that are, most of these are from Windsor. We're in Kapuskasing, Ontario. So the numbers climbed more rapidly from 1924 to 1929. And we've referred to these Serbs as starosjedioci, or it means an old settler. So for Serbs, that period was an old settler. They settled in Ford City, and Ford City was made up predominantly of Slavic peoples. Your Polish, your Croatians, your Serbians, your Ukrainians, all in that Drulard Road area, St. Luke, that whole area was, yeah. It was predominantly, Slavic area. So they felt very comfortable in that area. It was a comfort zone. Ford was a major industry, along with Dominion Forge. I don't know if some of you remember Dominion Forge, Union Foundry, General Motors, and a few others. So the Serbian colony in Windsor was about 30 to 40 families at that, around 1924 to 1930. The men and women, they had little education, no knowledge of the English language. So they kind of kept to themselves. And they lived in an area where even with the Poles and the Ukrainians, they could all speak to each other because Slavic languages are very similar. So they could communicate with each other. So they provided support for each other. Some worked small plots of land to provide food for their families. Others kept borders, worked long hours, but they helped each other. Times were tough, but they persevered. And it was important for them to ensure that their children did not forget their heritage. So they organized their first Serbian school in 1933 for approximately 45 children. They rented the second floor of the East Windsor Hall for $4 per month. Now, East Windsor is considered Drulard Road at that time because Windsor really didn't extend past Pilat, right? That was Sandwich East, so yeah. Okay, so the third wave came after the Second World War. From 1947 and well into the 1950s, Serbs emigrated to Canada and came to Windsor. Most were men who fought against the communist regime, which was now of power in Yugoslavia. They left Yugoslavia by foot and went to Italy, where they stayed in British army camps for 2 to 3 years. Then some went to Germany and came to Canada from there, while others went to Scotland and England before they finally came to Canada. My father was one of those people. He went to Italy, spent a couple of years in Italy, then went to Germany, then went to Scotland, worked in the mines, worked in the textile factory, and then finally came to Canada. So he fled Yugoslavia at the end of 1944, leaving behind my mother, my 2-year-old sister, and my mother was pregnant at the time. And his mother, they were left in the family home. He finally came to Canada in 1953 by ship from England to Halifax, which many people did, and then by train to Windsor with only a few dollars in his pocket. And he began working at the Ford Motor Company within a couple of days of his arrival to Windsor. This was a picture of a group of Serbs that are from Windsor. This was the kind of train that they took from Halifax to Windsor. And on October the 29th, 1956, so that's like 12 years later, my mother and my 2 sisters arrived in Halifax, Nova Scotia, on a ship called the Roma. They boarded a train for Windsor and were reunited with my father on October the 31st. So he saw my second sister for the first time when, pardon me?
12 years?
12 years apart. But he saw his second child for the first time when she was almost 12 years old. In 1957, I was born, and I'm often referred to as the reunion child. And yeah, I wonder. And my brother was born 2 years later. So we have actually like 2 families. I have 2 sisters that were born over there, and we have 2 that are born here. I'm kind of interjecting this right now only because it's pertinent, because I'm going to step back for a minute after this few slides. But on October the 29th, last year, 60 years later, my oldest sister and I took a trip to Halifax. She returned to Pier 21 and relived that moment when she arrived to this wonderful country, Canada. Mm-hmm. This was the sign. This was the sign, probably, this sign's been around for a long time. And this is her standing by the train that she probably, a similar type of train as we saw in that previous picture, that she would have boarded to go to Windsor. This was just a nice little plaque that I saw that mentioned about the immigrant. There's a sculpture done. And this is a little description of Pier 21. I took a photograph of the Roma because they have it's actually a very lovely museum that they have at Pier 21 in Halifax. And they have all the ships that arrived and what time periods they were arriving and stuff. So the Roma was there. And this, the picture in the bottom right-hand corner was like a receiving area where they would seat them all, line them all. They'd come in and seat them all, check them all out, quarantine the ones that needed quarantining or whatever. So now we're going to go back to the organizations in Windsor. I just had to interject that little family story. I hope you don't mind. Okay, so there were numerous Serbian organizations that formed in the beginning in 1926. They varied in their purpose. Some were branches of SNF, or the Serbian National Federation, which was kind of like, and it still exists today, it's kind of like an insurance. They created an insurance company that would help people for if they lost their jobs or whatever. So people would join like an insurance company, pay a certain amount, and then they'd have some coverage. They formed social organizations. Some lasted longer than others. Some underwent transformation. Some had national ties, international ties. Some were local, some were not. Windsor was home to organizations such as the Yugoslav Crown, which later became the Serbian Crown, which is a branch of the Serbian National Federation. That's located here in this area, and it still exists today. The Yugoslav Educational Club Unity, organized in 1917, I believe, or 1927, It was all ranks of Yugoslav immigrant. So that means all ranks means Serbians, Croatians, and Slovenes would have been members. However, it was disbanded years later. Okay, the Yugoslav Falcon, which is in our language is called the Sokol, and it's an organization that not only existed in Yugoslavia, it existed in Czechoslovakia and other Slavic countries. And it was, they focused on physical fitness and education, preserving natural traditions and stuff, but also a lot was involved in physical, like basketball teams and stuff like that. They had all sorts of things. They did plays, they did all sorts of different types of things like that. But this came to an end in 1933. And it was replaced by the Canadian Yugoslav Club, followed by the Yugoslav Canadian Association. So they changed their names a little bit, whatever. The Windsor Serbs joined the Serbian National Shield Society in 1940. Is that 42? It was a nationwide organization with branches in several Canadian cities. It provided support for non-communist resistance movement in Yugoslavia. So the Voice of Canada was a newspaper founded in 1934 by a Toronto businessman named Božidar Marković, and he owned and published it. In 1945, he handed over his newspaper service to the Serbian National Shield Society. The name became the Voice of Canadian Serbs. And the paper was moved to Windsor. It stayed in Windsor until 1983, when it moved back to Toronto, where it's still published today, every other month. On February 27, 1938, 14 women founded the Circle of Serbian Sisters. Their major concern was for their children to grow up in the Serbian Orthodox faith and tradition. In 1939, the Yugoslav National Hall was built, but was converted into the Serbian National Hall due to events which took place in World War II, and it was sold in 1962. A Serbian youth club, Srbija, was organized in 1945. Their purpose was to unite Serb youth through education, organizing athletic and recreational activities, and helping the Serbian Orthodox Church congregation. By 1949, Srbija transformed itself to the Serbian Singing Society, Gračanica, the name of the future church at that time. The group has been a member of the Serbian Singing Federation of America since then.
My dad sang it.
Yes, your dad, you mentioned that, your dad sang
Traveled
it.
all over the United States.
Yeah, and they still do, they still do. So in December of 1946, the Serbs in Windsor decided to form a congregation. An executive was elected with Nikola Drakic as the president. And on April the 6th, 1947, the first Serbian Orthodox Holy Liturgy was held in the hall on Drulard Road with Reverend Mijatović from Detroit officiating. On October 23rd, 1949, the ground was blessed for Windsor's first Serbian Orthodox church. The Gračanica Church, the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, was completed in 1952. And that's located on Meldrum and Tecumseh. A second congregation was established in the 1960s, and the church St. Demetrius was consecrated in September of 1966. The National Resistance Movement, Ravna Gora, was founded in 1953 and is still in existence. It's somewhat of a veterans group. However, they have provided financial aid to victims of natural disasters and also to restore churches that have been damaged during the war in the former Yugoslavia. And I'm talking about the more recent war. The Serbian Canadian Business and Professional Association was also established in 1961 to promote business and professional interests. Unfortunately, it no longer exists. However, the following few slides will give you some idea of the businesses owned and operated by Serbs from the 1940s to the 1970s. I just want to give you some idea, because it's really, when I started researching this, it was amazing what I found out. And some of them will be familiar to you, some of them may not be. I'm not going to read them all out, but this will give you a good idea. So these were Serbian businesses in Windsor from 1940 to 1970. I'm just going to leave the slides up for a minute or two so that you can maybe
You could read it
recognize.
because it's a bit-
Yeah, we can't see it.
Yeah, I can read it. I'm going to have to read it from over here though. So we have A&M Picture Gallery, the Amherstburg Provision Company, VC Speedy Auto Wash, Baby House, Bellevue Hotel, the Bridge Avenue Hotel, Border Hotel, Bullets Market, Bullets Menswear, Europe Hotel, Paris Hotel, Community Market, Detroit Hotel, Dominion Golf Course, Duffy's Tavern in Oregon, Essex House, Essex Linen Supply, Highway Hotel, Hotel Drake, Hotel Royale, International Hotel, International Market, Island View Tavern, Joe's Provision, Kuzman's Market, Lad's Dairy Bar, Lakeshore Tavern, Lakeview Hotel, Little River Golf Course, London Grill, Moleschi Furs, Mullins Pharmacy, Mullins Photography, Monroe Hotel, N&D Fountain Blue, N&D Yorktown and Easttown, Orient Commerce, Zurich Insurance, Plant Grocery, Albert Brook Grocery, Mullins Restaurant, Plaza Hotel, Rendezvous Tavern, Royal Oak Tavern, Cadillac Motel, Salamander Shoes, Southwood Hotel, St. Clair Grill, St. Clair Tavern, Station Lunch Diner, Steve's Confectionery, Temple Hotel, the Anderton Tavern, the Metropole, Top Hat Supper Club, Wellington Hotel. So I think that gives you an idea of,
They're everywhere.
they were everywhere, especially in the hotels. A lot of hotels,
They like to
but
wear.
grocery stores, stuff like furriers, like there was a variety there, but there was a lot during that time period. So there were people that worked hard. The Serbs are hardworking people. The Serbian Community Center at 6770 Tecumseh Road East was built in 1967. And the expansion of the center was in 1987, was made possible through a grant from the government of Ontario. However, there was a stipulation made to incorporate a heritage museum into the expansion. And on August 27, 1987, the Serbian Heritage Museum was officially opened within the Serbian Center.
And I was there on Friday, it was beautiful.
On Friday or Thursday?
Whatever, Thursday, no,
Thursday night?
yes, for the barber shoppers.
Oh, no, you weren't there for the big event that we had on Thursday night.
I was there for my big event. My big event's bigger than your big event. No, it was very.
Well, I'm gonna toot my horn about my.
No, I'm just saying, I'm trying to say, it was a lovely establishment, well served, we were well cared for.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
I'm trying to say that to you, but you're fighting back. You won't take it a compliment, will you? It was very good,
Thank you, thank you. So the museum was founded in 1976. The Serbian Heritage Women's Society was an organization that was dedicated to preserving and promoting Serbian culture and heritage. It is because of the founding women of this organization that our museum exists today. A third congregation, St. Pedka, was established just a few years ago and is located in the town of Lakeshore. So I'm trying to go consecutively as the years pass. The museum has been in existence since 1987, and its purpose is to collect, research, and exhibit artifacts and archival material related to Serbian history and culture. It has been fortunate to have received grants over the years, which have enabled the completions of some very significant projects, one of them being a digitization project. So many of our rare books, newspapers, periodicals, and significant documents are available to the public online on our website in our Serbian Heritage Museum library. The online library contains not only those rare books, it contains documents relating to baptisms, deaths, weddings, and they could be very helpful in ancestry research. That's why I'm bringing that up here. So there are documents like that online on the Serbian Heritage Museum site in the library. The museum also has some information acquired from surveying local families about their ancestry. However, it is very limited. We do have a series of videos on our YouTube channel of interviews that were done. There could be about 30 to 40 some interviews that were done in the 90s. It was also a project that was funded, a grant that was given. So they interviewed people from Windsor, so there could be some information in there listening to the interviews. But we don't really have anything outside of that.
Which language are they? What's the language?
The language for the YouTube videos is in English. Yeah, they were all interviewed in English because it was a grant that was provided by the government. So on our YouTube channel, it's an excellent resource. There's a series of videos, and that's what I was referring to, Windsor Serbs and their achievements. So that's available for viewing, and it is in English. And as I mentioned, they consist of interviews being done of people within the community. There are also videos that the museum has collaborated on. Videos of our exhibits you can see there as well, and videos that the museum's produced. We really try to provide meaningful and interesting exhibits, some of which are historic in nature and others which showcase the works of Serbian artists. We have provided classes through Elder College that are held at the museum, and we also are open to tours by appointment. In fact, we've hosted the questers a couple of times, and we're posting them again on Thursday. Our hours, they vary depending on the season, sort of like your meetings too. But currently we're open Tuesday through Friday, 1:30 to 4:30. But you can check on the website just to ensure that we're open. And we are always open for appointments. Like if somebody sets something up, we're more than willing to have a group come in and we'll do a presentation and have them look at the exhibit or whatever we've got going. So we're happy to share our culture with fellow Canadians, and we welcome the opportunity to work with other organizations on projects that benefit our community. In fact, on June the 8th, this is the one I'm talking about. On June the 8th, we held a grand event to open our current exhibit. It's called The Women Who Went to War in Serbia, A Time for Recognition, which recognizes not only Serbian women, but predominantly the women of the Scottish Women's Hospital. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to share this evening with you, but I'm going to still show a couple of videos if I may.
Sure.
If you don't mind, I'd like to show you our promotional video for the event that we had. This was our promotional video. So these women, and I get teary when I talk about them because they were quite incredible. They came to Serbia the Serbian women were in Serbia, but these other women came to Serbia during the First World War to help the Serbs. They healed them, they fought with them. Flora Sands is the only British woman who bore arms during the First World War, and she was in the Serbian army. They weren't treated as equals in their own country, and they came to Serbia, and the Serbians embraced them and loved them, and they loved the Serbian people. These were women of stature, women who were told to go, would report to the army office and were told to go home and sit still.
Make babies.
Mm-hmm. And they decided that they were going to buck that whole system, and they decided they were going to form these Scottish women's hospitals, and they just went to it. And I get goosebumps just thinking about it. They're really, really incredible women. So I'm going to show you just briefly another short video, and this is of the evening that we had. The other night, we had a grand event, and it was a fundraiser. So it was open to the public, and it was to open this exhibit and to honor these women. The exhibit's on until the 17th of November, so it's going to be well through Remembrance Day. We want to have it there for the veterans because the Serbian Center also does the lunch for the veterans every year. So we want it to be open for them, but it is open. If anybody wants to make a group appointment, we are more than willing to show that. The questers are coming in on Thursday to do it. The Elder College, we're going to be holding a class on this. So it's a really interesting topic. And this was from the other night. It's a short video, not very long, but I hope you will humor me just for a few moments.
Is Mrs. Markovich involved in any of this stuff? Very much. Very much. Very much. Yes.
The Serbian Heritage Women's, College.
And this too.
In this, no.
No?
Mrs. Markovich is not here
She was
anymore.
here at this library.
Yes.
She's,
Yeah.
in a very executive position. Director.
So we had the thistle, and we had a flower that mimicked the Ramonda, which is a Serbian flower. It is equivalent to the poppy here in Canada. It's a Ramonda. And we were fortunate to have the Border Cities Caledonian Piping Band. It was a very emotional evening. I get teary when I listen to pipers playing. Oh yeah.
My mother's favorite music.
Oh yes.
Aside from Serbia. Serbia
Yeah.
was second.
Yeah. I was just wishing everybody a nice evening.
That's good. You're not even Scottish.
Yes. But we had some Scottish dancers too coming up. This was a friend of ours, Alan Cumming, who we collaborated with from Scotland, and he gave a welcome. Yeah, Pat Reed. Yeah.
Like a little friend.
Mm-hmm. And then Huddy came in between his news.
Yeah.
Right in between. He
He's
just had
generally
enough
busy.
time.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah. So we had Scottish dancers and we had the Serbian dancers, and then they danced together and they exchanged the thistle for the Ramonda, each of them, at the end of the dance, which was very lovely. So this is just briefly the exhibit as it stands. The Serbs honored these women by putting out a set of commemorative stamps in December of 2015 for the Scottish Women's Hospital. Yeah. So if you get a chance, come and see the exhibit. It's on till November. It's really quite a lovely exhibit. We have a memorial wall, and we only have like 135 names because there were like 600 women that came to help, but we kind of focused on, we have a focus group of 19, but we did want to do a memorial wall just to show the magnitude of how many women really were involved.
From where did they come?
Scotland,
They're- and
predominantly Scotland, New
Okay.
Zealand, Australia,
British Commonwealth.
yeah, British Commonwealth, but also United States. We have actually one of the focus people is Ruth Farnham, who is from the United States, and she was together with the Red Cross that ended up in the Serbian Army.
Okay. That's the question.
Yeah, and Canadian.
Well,
We have the first Canadian, one of our focus women is the first Canadian physician, female physician in Quebec. Yeah. Irma Lavester. And one of them is a golfer in the Hall of Fame, actually, from Hamilton. Yep.
People who achieve.
Yes, they do. So we do have our little rack card for the current exhibit, and it shows the women that we did focus on the back and their names. If you're interested, you can pick it up over there. We also have our card for the Serbian Museum, just to give you some information. And I've also have left some cards for a play that's coming up from a local Scotsman, Barry Brody, called The Death and Life of Tom Thomson, which is going to be playing at the Art Gallery of Windsor on July 7th. So there's those up there as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, if you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
So when you were talking about they were interned in the internment camp, so that's been very similar to the Japanese Canadian and what had
Yes.
happened to them?
Yes, it's just that it was kept very quiet
Yeah.
until a few years ago. So, yeah. It kind of came to light, and actually there is a committee that works with the government. There's all sorts of money that the government's given to uncover this. It's predominantly Ukrainians. They had their properties confiscated. Yeah, it was a very, very tough.
And where did you say they ended up placing them? Like
There were
more?
25 different camps from
Okay.
British Columbia to Nova Scotia.
For which war?
Wow.
First World War.
Don't say, well,
Oh,
if
yeah,
I should
First
know.
World War.
I'm asking the
Oh, First
question
World
because I don't
War,
know. Okay.
Yeah, First World War.
But
That's when the War Measures Act was enacted.
Yeah, but the Ukrainians were Russian, so-called Russian. I would have thought they would have been on the Allied side. Well, I'm
Part of it,
not challenging, I'm just curious.
no, part of them were involved in the Austrian-Hungarian Empire too.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I just thought that Ukraine was engulfed in Russia, but okay, I understand that too, yeah. I don't have history.
The map was very different at that time.
I know, but
The
the
maps
map
were very different
changed.
in First World War.
Draw lines all over the place.
Yeah.
I understand.
So you were talking about your collection is being digitized, so it has all been completed now? Or are you still in the process of digitizing more?
The newspapers are still being digitized as they come in, the Voice of Canadian
Okay,
Serbs.
okay, so it's
Yes.
current then?
Yes,
It's pretty
yeah,
current?
We try to be as current as we
Okay.
possibly can.
Okay.
But as I mentioned earlier, we have a problem with the internet, so uploading sometimes is rather difficult. But books, we still are trying to digitize some. Some is a permission thing,
Yes,
so
yes.
that's a problem for some.
Copyright.
Yeah.
So would you say that you have family histories then, going back across to the homeland?
No,
Not,
we have
okay, not so much.
baptisms and stuff that took place here.
Here, okay, okay.
So the baptismals, the marriage stuff, that stuff is
Okay,
all,
that happened
In
here in
Canada,
Canada.
yeah.
Okay, all right,
and actually would be Windsor.
okay. All right, good to know. All
On
right.
behalf of the Essex branch of the Genealogical Society, I'd like to thank you so much for the
Well, thank you.
presentation. Very informative, and a lot of the names that came up there, I remember for sure, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, all right.
So I was at the event on Friday night,
What was the event?
the barbershop quartet, barbershops, there were like 250 people, full house.
Really? Wow.
there were